Okay, so here's a thought. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, right? But what happens when someone else moves in temporarily and that sanctuary starts to feel like a shared workspace you didn't sign up for or becomes a place you don't even recognize anymore? And at the end of the day, when you come home tired, there they are, comfortable, settled in your space. And you smile like the world is great. You say out loud, "Hey, how was your day?" Because what else do you say? "Get the heck out of my house." Just joking. But what you do not say, what you have been thinking since about day 8, is, when are you leaving? And also, can you please contribute something to this household? Yeah, we're starting right there. I'm the Alexandria Dean. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud While Looking Over Your Shoulder, the podcast where we say the quiet part out loud. So basically, every episode, I'm going to walk into a room, metaphorically speaking, and say the thing that everybody in that room is already thinking, but nobody wants to be the one to say it.
The thoughts you text your best friend at 11:30 at night. The things you think on the way home from a family dinner. The feelings you have that make you go, "Am I wrong for this?" You're probably not wrong, but we're going to figure that out.
What together? Firstly, I'm a tech CEO. I've spent years in fitness. I've written and taught about self love, and at 38 years old, I have come to understand one very important thing: silence is not the same as peace. So, let's talk. Okay, so today's episode is called The Guest Who Forgot They Were a Guest.
And I want to be very specific about the scenario I'm describing because I am not talking about someone who crashes on your couch for a weekend after a flight delay. I am not talking about your college roommate passing through town for 3 days. I am not even talking about somebody in a genuine crisis, a job loss, a difficult situation, where you open your home because that is what you do for the people you love. That is a different conversation for a different day. I am talking about a very specific kind of house guest, the employed one, the one who has a paycheck, the one who is not in crisis, the one who needed or wanted a place to stay for 2 to 4 weeks because it was convenient for them. Maybe it was cheaper than a hotel. Maybe they were between leases. Maybe they were in your city for a work project. Or maybe, and I say this with love, they just knew you wouldn't say no. And you didn't because you're a good person. You opened your home. You said, "Of course, stay as long as you need." That hits close to home. I mean, we've all been there, right? You're trying to be generous, loving, and supportive. You're really just trying to help someone out. But then suddenly you start Googling whether it's legal to change your own locks. And that's a horrible feeling. Okay, maybe not that dramatic, but you are having a feeling. A feeling that you haven't named yet because naming it feels uncomfortable. It feels ungrateful. It feels like something a selfish person would feel. I want to talk about that feeling today. Let's start with something I believe in deeply. And this comes from years of writing and teaching about self love. So bear with me for a second. Your home is not just a building, it is not just a collection of furniture and a Wi Fi password. Your home is your nervous system. It is the one place on this entire planet where you are supposed to be able to exhale, where you take off the professional mask, the social media face, the "I'm doing great" energy, and you just are. You are you to the core. When I come home after a 14-hour day running my company, I need my home to be a place that restores me, not a place that adds to my list. Now, you add another adult human being to that space, An adult who is not taking off their shoes and leaving them by the door in a way that quietly irritates you. An adult whose dishes are sitting in the sink with that look of, someone will get to these. An adult who ate the leftovers you were specifically thinking about on the drive home. The leftovers, y'all. Don't touch the leftovers. And none of this has been acknowledged. No offer to help with groceries, pay a bill. No, hey, let me cook dinner this week. No, I want to put something toward the utilities. Nothing. And yes, I added that twice. Just presence. Just existing in your space like it is shared space when it is decidedly not. Now, here is where it gets interesting because I want to talk about the layers of this. Because this is not just about the dishes or the groceries. This is about something much deeper. This is about the assumption. There is a particular kind of audacity, and I use that word very intentionally, in assuming that someone else's home, someone else's space, someone else's resources are just available to you without conversation, without reciprocity, without so much as a thank you. And here's how I'm going to show that. And I think the reason this happens, the reason people do this, and I do believe most of them are not doing it maliciously, is because we have a very complicated relationship in this culture with talking about money and contribution when it comes to the people we love. We have decided somewhere along the way that if you really love someone, if you're really a good friend, a good family member, a good person, you don't bring up money. You don't keep score. You just give. And you give. And you give. And then one day you're sitting in your own living room, feeling like a guest in your own home, wondering when you became the hotel. A hotel that doesn't charge, by the way. A hotel that also does laundry. Here's what I know from running a company. Unclear expectations always lead to unmet expectations. In business, we don't let people just show up and operate without an agreement. We don't say, oh, just do whatever feels right and we'll figure it out. We have onboarding, we have role clarity, we have deliverables, not because we don't trust people, but because clarity is an act of respect. Clarity tells someone, I value this relationship enough to be honest with you about how it works. Your home deserves that same clarity. Think about it this way. If a colleague came to your office every day for 3 weeks, used your desk, your computer, your phone charger, your coffee machine, ate your lunch from the break room fridge, and never once said, hey, what can I do? How can I contribute? What do you need? You would have a meeting. You would set a boundary. You would say something. But when it's personal, we go quiet. We go quiet because we don't want to seem petty. We go quiet because we were raised to be hospitable. We go quiet because somewhere, deep down, we have a fear that if we say this isn't working for me, the person will be hurt. Or worse, they'll think less of us. And so we perform generosity we don't feel did while slowly building resentment we never address. And we call that being a good host. Not. I want to offer a different definition of good hosting. A good host is someone who creates a space where both parties feel respected, where the person staying knows the expectations, where there is a timeline that both people agree on, where contribution is a conversation, not an assumption in either direction. Because here is the other side of this, and I'll get to the devil's advocate moment in a second. But sometimes the guest doesn't know. Not because they don't care, but because you have been so gracious, so accommodating, so perfectly hospitable that they genuinely have not picked up on the fact that it has been too long, too much, and that you are running on empty. We are too good at pretending we're fine. It is a skill and a curse. I think about the self love work I've done, the writing, the teaching, and one of the most repeated themes was this: the people who struggle most with receiving love are often the ones who are best at giving it, because giving feels safe, giving feels noble, giving doesn't require you to be vulnerable or to risk disappointment. But setting a boundary, naming a need, saying I love you, and also this arrangement needs to look different, that is the harder thing. That requires you to believe that your comfort matters as much as theirs. And it does. So let's start with the basics. Why does this happen? Why do we let someone stay in our space, often without clear boundaries, and then feel trapped by our own generosity? Now, here's where we have to be brutally honest with ourselves. Well, I think part of it is cultural. There's this idea that being a good host means being endlessly accommodating. You open your home, you say stay as long as you need, and you don't bring up things like timelines or contributions because that feels transactional. Very. But here's the thing: your home isn't just a building, it's not just a collection of furniture and a Wi Fi password. Your home is your nervous system. It's the one place where you're supposed to feel completely at ease. And when someone else is there, especially for an extended period, it disrupts that balance. And if they're getting on your last nerve, it's even worse. And it's not just the big things like sharing a bathroom or splitting utilities, it's the little things. The shoes left on instead of being taken off at the door, the dishes in the sink, the way they use the last of the coffee creamer without replacing it. Those small irritations add up quickly, and none of it gets acknowledged. There's no, hey, let me grab groceries this week, help pay a bill, or I'll cook dinner tonight. It's just presence. And that unspoken assumption that your space, your resources, your energy are just available to them can feel incredibly draining. But here's the tricky part: most of us don't say anything, not a word. We don't want to seem petty or inhospitable, so we just endure it. We tell ourselves, it's fine, it's temporary. But inside, we're quietly stewing and ready to let all hell break loose. And that's where the resentment starts to build. Because silence isn't peace, it's just avoidance. And the longer you avoid the conversation, the harder it becomes to have it without it feeling like an explosion. You end up talking to him or her with the "Hey Arnold" fist. So, how do you break that cycle? How do you address the situation without damaging the relationship or coming across as unkind? It starts with reframing what it means to be a good host. A good host isn't someone who sacrifices their own comfort and well being for the sake of their guest. A good host is someone who creates an environment where both parties feel respected. And that requires clarity. And that clarity starts from the very beginning, right? When someone asks to stay with you, it's okay, necessary even, to have a conversation about expectations. How long are they planning to stay? What kind of contribution can they make once you get on your feet? And contribution doesn't have to mean money, but we know it helps. It can be groceries, cooking, cleaning, anything that acknowledges the fact that hosting someone comes with a cost. Because let's be honest, even the most generous host has limits. And remember, you're using extra water, electric, and gas. It's not free. But what if you didn't have that conversation up front? What if you're already weeks into the arrangement and you're starting to feel that tension? How do you bring it up without it turning into a confrontation? For me personally, I think it starts with owning your feelings. It's not about blaming the guest or making them feel unwelcome. It's about expressing what you need to feel comfortable in your own home. Something like, hey, I've been thinking about how we can make this work better for both of us, can open the door to a productive conversation. Not, hey, we have to do something about you doing this or that. And it's important to remember that this isn't just about you, it's about the relationship. Addressing these feelings openly and honestly can actually strengthen your connection with the other person. It shows that you value the relationship enough to have the hard conversation. And it's also worth considering the guest perspective. This one, maybe they genuinely don't realize how much their presence is impacting you. Maybe they've been operating under the assumption that everything is fine because you haven't said otherwise. It's easy to jump to conclusions or assume the worst, but taking a moment to understand where the other person is coming from can make a big difference. And sometimes the solution is as simple as saying, hey, I could really use some help with groceries this week. Or, can we talk about a timeline for your stay? And if you're the guest in this scenario, it's worth asking yourself, am I contributing in a way that acknowledges the generosity of my host? Have I had a conversation about what they need from me? Because being a good guest isn't just about not being a burden, it's about actively contributing to the household. It's about mutual respect and reciprocity. And it's not about keeping score, it's about creating a dynamic where both people feel seen and appreciated. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to communication. Whether you're the host or the guest, having those conversations early and often can prevent so much unnecessary tension and resentment because clarity is kindness. And that's something we can all strive for, whether it's in our homes, our workplaces, or our relationships. It's about creating spaces, literal and metaphorical, where everyone feels respected and valued. So the next time someone asks to stay with you, or if you're the one doing the asking, remember that it's okay to have the conversation. It's okay to set boundaries. And it's okay to prioritize your own peace. Because at the end of the day, your home is your sanctuary. Protect it. Let me repeat it again. Your home is your sanctuary. And on that note, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about. Whether you're the host or the guest, there's always room for growth and understanding. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. Have you been in this situation before? How did you handle it? Let us know. We're all in this together. That is what I am thinking out loud this week. And I genuinely want to know, what are you thinking? Have you been the host who couldn't say it? Have you been the guest who didn't realize it? Have you had the conversation and it went beautifully or terribly? I want to hear all of it. You can find me and you can find the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave me a review if this hit somewhere real for you. Share it with the friend who needs to hear it, or share it with the guest anonymously. I won't tell. I'm Alexandria Dean. Thank you for thinking out loud with me. And next time, say the thing. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.